Hey, everybody. We just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome to all of our viewers to F.L.O.W Presents. Right now, we are talking about love. We're talking about cuffing season. I am your host for today, your moderator for today, Susan Caleb Harris. And we are so excited to get into it with the guests that we have. Before we start giving you the good stuff, because everybody on this panel has something really good to share, we are going to pause really quickly and say to like, to subscribe, and be sure that you are all up in the comment sections because we want to hear from you. All right, now that we have gotten that out of the way, I am going to have our panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their relationship status / love stories. So we'll start with, looking at my screen, we'll start with Ben and Kayla.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kayla.
Ben.
We are married. I am a Black woman.
White man.
Not sure what other.
Oh no, we want to hear a little bit about your love story.
Oh, we want to hear.
Okay. Yeah, like how did you guys meet? Who was interested in who first? Was it mutual?
Kinda.
Yeah, we met we were in college. We had the same off-campus job, and
around 2009.
Yeah, I had been at that job a little longer than he was, and so I was training him, and so maybe a little bit too close to Me Too than I would prefer to really admit, but he was cute and good, quiet, and we just were friends. We had it was a lot of college kids in the job, and we were just all hanging out and friends and stuff. And then
we both had significant others at the time, though, so we could only be friendly, and it took a while for us to even interact more than in a professional way. In the beginning, I just, it was a part-time job, so we just went in there for a few minutes or a few hours that day, and then we went home or whatever. And I think there was one day where we were both there a little bit later, and people were getting bored, and a bunch of us just were talking, and that was, I think, the first time we actually had conversation that was more than just about work. And that's kind of when a friendship blossomed. And then I don't know, we started having issues in our relationships, unrelated.
Coincidental that we both were
and I think both of us had a crush on the other without the other knowing it. And then one day she randomly smacked my butt.
I wasn't gonna say it. I was just gonna allude to that. I wasn't going to mention it, but it is true.
And that kind of sparked things a little bit more.
That was it. That's why the whole Me Too thing. I didn't know, but he's not suing me, so. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to be a little forward. I'm here for it as long as the other person is consenting.
Exactly.
But I have to put out that disclaimer.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, we're gonna go now to Miriam and Thade.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thade. It's my wife, Miriam. We are married, of course. I am Dominican. She is Kenyan. We are on opposite sides of the world, and so there's a lot of differences between us, but the way we met was in our teens, and we developed a friendship through that time. I was actually at her sweet 16 when she had it. And we had our own relationships as we grew up, and our other significant others. And you know, God kind of drove us together in where we had to do ministry together. And so that just grew and blossomed. And one night Miriam had asked me, so what's really good? What's going on? What's this thing between us? And I just said, you know, I'm just praying about it. And shortly thereafter, we started dating, and about 2 years later or so, we are happily married, and we just celebrated 5 years of our anniversary.
Can I say how much I'm loving the boldness in these women? I mean, okay. I love it. I love it. I'm Liv. I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
My name is F.L.W. Norris. Second time on this panel again. I'm Jamaican. I'm Jamaican. I would consider myself an African Caribbean. Even though my family, our motto in Jamaica is out of many one people, my family is very diverse. I didn't even know what box to check when I came to America. I had to ask my mother because we had so many different hues of people in my family from all types of backgrounds. So my mother said, you know, American society is going to see you as a Black woman. So just check Black. And but between me and my father, we still, because there's a big question mark on his side of the family versus my mom's side of the family. I guess we started this thing of it was okay when he was dating interracially. I thought it was okay, which is, you know, Caribbean women in my family had some issues with it, but I don't have any regrets for dating outside of my race. From Hispanic men, Spanish, white, Caribbean, like Latino men, Haitians, Trinidadians, and even African Americans. So to be in a relationship now with an African is very different. It's just a lot to talk about, because I guess we don't normally talk too much about dating outside our race, especially in the Caribbean community, because they always think that you have to marry someone of your background. But for me, because there's a big question mark, I tell people that could be my cousin on my dad's side. So I don't know.
Thank you so much. I'm Liv. Lucky.
Hi, I'm Lucky. My mother is from Sri Lanka, which is a small island in the Indian Ocean. My dad is from California. He's a military dude. They fell in love in Karachi, Pakistan, where my mom was there for nursing school. So like product of an interracial marriage. Pretty difficult to date someone who identifies the way that I do. So that never happened. But I've been married about 7 years, but y'all, I had so many boyfriends, like so many. And a single one of them was the same race as me. So it covered the spectrum. Had a little boyfriend in Spain. I dated a Korean guy for a long time. So this is it. This is my topic.
So one thing that I'll say that I love about this panel is how diverse we are. It's actually really, really beautiful to see. And there are a lot of people that are afraid. Sometimes they talk about like negatively about dating outside of your race because there's this thing about preserving your culture. So what I kind of want to know from you guys is, was that ever a struggle of yours when you were thinking about dating someone who didn't look like you? And yeah, I just want you to be as transparent as you feel comfortable being. And anybody can jump in.
I would love to start with this one real quick, that now that I have a child, it really hit home to see my fair-skinned, straighter-haired child who passes for white. And I didn't realize how that would affect me. And so it makes me work that much harder to share our family heritage and to make sure that my mother is speaking with her in her native tongue. And we share a lot of that culture with her. And it never dawned on me until I gave birth to this little pink human and was just like, hang on, like we're different.
Right.
And it makes me wonder how my mom felt when that happened.
Right.
For me, bringing home, I was like the wild child in my family. So anybody else, my mother was like, Spanish people was fine. Black people, that was fine. African Americans, didn't matter if they were Caribbean or Latino or not or anything. But the day I brought home or introduced them to, my white boyfriend I was dating, it's like everyone's jaws dropped. And they were just like, what's he doing here? Or what are you doing? Or it's almost like they were questioning my motives of why. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why not? What's the problem? Because even, as all relationships, the more and more I dated other people, it seems to be the same, the same problems. There's no difference. So it's not like I didn't see the person's, that they were white and I was black. Right. It was more like he had an interest in dating me because homeboy stopped his car in the middle of traffic just to talk to me. And so I was like, I kept thinking, should I give him a chance or not? He seems a little crazy. Why would you stop in the middle of traffic? So I gave him a chance. And, I would say that I don't regret it because even being that we grew up in Maryland, it was a very diverse place, just like my growing up in Jamaica. My home was very diverse. My family is very diverse. So for them to be kind of shell shocked when I brought this young man home, I was like, I'm confused, you guys. We have people in our family that are mixed or have married a white person or Indian person or this and that. Why is it any different, or why is it not okay? So to me, I think it opened up my mom's eyes that even when my younger sister started dating outside her race, she felt it was okay. Like this was the go ahead to, to pursue that, that side, because our mom did tell her, I guess, it wasn't okay. But when I did that, I guess it opened up where my mother kind of put her bias aside and was able to see them as a person versus what we were told coming up here, that a lot of, because of the racial tension in America, right. That even though there wasn't tension back in the 90s, the late 90s into the early 2000s, it just, I guess it broke down that stereotype and those prejudice my family had towards people that weren't of our race or heritage.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And we'll get into the whole family thing in a little bit. I'm just curious to know about culture. Like did you ever feel a need to protect your culture? Was that ever a concern of yours when you were thinking about dating somebody that was different from you?
Yeah, I thought Kayla was about to start. Okay. Yeah, I think everyone has a sense of like ethnocentrism. Like they want to hold on to whatever things make them uniquely who they are. And so it's really interesting when you join with someone else who does things differently. And now you're trying to figure out how to blend those two things together, what you want to keep, what you want to leave. Like, I think you'll always feel like wanting to like preserve, yourself.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it wasn't necessarily a consideration of whether or not I would date him or any of the people that I dated. It's more of it's a consideration now. It's a something that we work out and figure out. But I definitely understand the hesitancy, especially with like being with a white person as opposed to somebody else that is a different culture that I am less accustomed to, and that has not colonized other of my people. I think it's more of a consideration or a concern. I think I would understand and definitely do understand how it would be a concern.
Right. So I kind of want to hear from the guys. Ben, what is your take on all of this, and then we'll go to Sade.
So I didn't have any. Yeah, I didn't have any. Luckily, growing up in the like Montgomery County, Maryland area, plenty of diversity. So I never had any issue dating interracially or any like. It was never. It didn't even really cross my mind that much. Like that, it would be a barrier, I guess. And then, you know, when you talk about culture, I mean, she was just brought it up. So I'm white. There's not really much culture. So, and I never wanted to like, you know, dating and marrying her. I think the bigger issue we had to deal with was that she was raised Seventh-day Adventist and I was not. So that was more of like kind of learning about the Sabbath and how that is handled versus, you know, how I grew up was a bigger thing than anything else, and her being vegetarian versus me not.
That's a
yeah.
So, those could be fighting words in some households.
This household. Yeah.
She may have eaten meat once or twice accidentally.
Accidentally, right? Yeah. But I will say, like, it is nice that he doesn't have like no culture. His family is like Italian and Polish heritage. They have some stuff that I'm like, okay, I could learn about that. Like, tell me about that. So that keeps it interesting.
Well, for me, I think I never shied away from dating anyone outside of my culture, especially being Hispanic and a Dominican man, Afro-Latino in the full sense of it all, because it was, you know, when I was always seeking to be with somebody or I was looking, I was never thinking, oh, am I thinking about their race or what they eat or whatever else? You know, I find myself to be someone who's very adaptable. And if I'm joining myself with you or whatever, I'm going to take in everything that you have to give. And I'm just going to go ahead and just live my life with what I have with you. But, you know, that's where I'm at.
I love it. So Ben and Kayla actually brought up something that I kind of want to touch on, which will, you know, anyway, like I said, this is fighting words. Food. Were there any things that you sort of had to become accustomed to? Were there any shocks in the way that, you know, your partner prepared certain things, or just in general how they operated because you guys weren't, you know, brought up the same way, or because you were coming from or merging two different cultures? So, you know, I like to bring up the example of my husband and I when it comes to food and how he likes his food seasoned a certain way. He likes a certain texture and things, and I am completely different. And I could see how it might be even an even bigger deal when you come from completely different cultures, and where there are like different spices. And so how was that adjusting and adapting to different traditions?
Well, we are unique, I think, among our culture because Ben he loves spicy food. Like anytime we order and somebody brings us the food and it's like whatever is the spiciest, they assume it's for me, and I'm like, please, I want it. I ordered medium. He wants it like Thai spicy and all kind of crazy. He loves like just absorbing every culture's like flavors. Anywhere we go, he's like, I want to try the street food. I want to do whatever he wants all of that. So that is lovely. And it's actually more of like, I feel bad that I can't like cook like my mom, or I don't have I'm like, we need to go to like somebody else's house, I think, because yeah, it's more of like, I think, like maybe when we're like visiting each other's families, we have a little less because like the rest of his family doesn't like their food that spicy, but they still have like, it's just, they're not very stereotypical in a lot of ways, but I still make fun of them, make fun of him for it. Like, it's too much salt for you or something like that, but it's really not a problem.
I think for us, we were like foodies in general. Like we've always loved like different cultures, foods and things of that nature. But there's definitely differences in like the spices that we use. Like so in Kenyan, for a lot of Kenyan cuisine, he always like gets at me for making things with like spices like garam masala or like more of the Indian spices. Whereas my husband, like sazon is the thing. Like you need to have some adobo, you need to have some sazon, you need to have like all those kind of things. And so we've kind of had fun with kind of trying to like merge those two things together and kind of make it our own. And like every night we have something different, and sometimes it's not just something more Dominican, or sometimes it's not just something more Kenyan. Sometimes we'll have Mexican inspired stuff or whatever. But that's just because we're foodies.
And you also come to realize, like, even between our both cultures, like, there's a lot of food similarities.
Yeah.
So whatever was brought from Africa has ended up in the Caribbean in one form or another. And so it just got changed. The recipe might be done differently, but it all has the same roots. So what is getting in Kenya, like un plátano or plantain, it's the same thing we eat. There's no difference. It's just the way that
it's
we
prepared. Yeah. So for instance, like there's this thing that we eat, it's like made out of cornmeal called ugali. And like you eat it with like, vegetables or like meat stews or whatever. And then, but that same cornmeal that we prepare, Dominicans make something called like arepa.
Mhm.
And it's basically just like, I call it fried ugali. But it's quite interesting to see the similarities, but we're still so different.
Awesome. Okay, so Amliv and Lucky, want to hear from you as well.
So the fact that I switched up to be vegan now, my family has a huge issue with that. I mean, it took me a while to kind of come out the closet about being a vegan, but it was basically, no, it's true. So, and it had nothing to do with the people I dated, because even the people I dated, they still love Jamaican food, jerk chicken, curry chicken, goat, all that stuff, right? And for me, I used to even dibble and dab just to, because I miss those foods. However, because of health issues, it's a big test. Whoever I date, I tell them, hey, I'm vegan, what you gonna do? I'm vegan. So the person I'm dating, he's become very creative because, he's African. He loves the spicy foods, coming from Liberia and everything with palm oil, everything. So for him to even be exploring my world of my new cuisine, it's very interesting for him. Hey, let me take you to this new vegan restaurant. So it's very fun right now while I'm dating that we're going to restaurants, we're trying different things to bring home and, try to recreate it in our own way and everything else. Because I still use the same seasonings, the same Goya, adobo, all of that good stuff. On those veggie meats and everything. And my family, they're surprised now that they're trying to say, hey, make me some more of that food because that really does taste good. So
got it. So for you, it has been more of a way that you test people. If they can eat what you dish out, then they're good.
Right.
Good. So Lucky, I actually wanted to touch on something that you spoke about earlier when it comes to having children. Has your culture shaped, like, what are some ways that your culture has shaped the way that you raise your child, or that you think about raising your children? And for our other couples on the panel, is that something that you think about, like how you're going to raise your children, especially when we are in a climate where racial tensions are so high and everything is so political and everybody has an opinion about everything?
That's a great question. I think growing up, my mother was so excited to become an American that, like, really it was hard work for her to like become proficient at the language, to be accepted in the variety of circles. And so a lot of the things that I am seeing her teach our daughter are things that I wasn't exposed to or I did not know were happening. So like I'm learning kind of right along with them, and everything that she is throwing out, I am picking up and holding on tightly so I can keep that going generationally. And we have a lot of kind of like fun little customs in Sri Lanka that really my mother is doling out. There are no books on this. She could be making them up. I don't know. But like when a child has their first bite of food, real food, it's a big deal. It's a celebration. So like my child did not have anything besides mother's milk until the day we were ready to celebrate. And then she ate a sweet potato off of a piece of china. And it was a very big deal. And when a young woman menstruates for the first time, it's like you put that girl in kind of a special quarantine for a few days. You give her a gift every day. And that's something that my mother did with me that I found really special, that I'm so excited to do with my daughter, because none of my friends had that. Nobody got made a big deal out of when that thing happened to them. And, you know, thinking about how can I continue to pull these things out of really the only treasure trove I have, because the rest of our family is back in Sri Lanka. Like, I got to ask the questions. I got to take notes because like right now it's coming out, but I won't have that access forever.
Right. Anybody else want to chime in? How do you think your cultures, how do you think your culture will impact how you raise your children?
Oh, so we have an interesting situation because my husband being Afro-Latino, like him coming into the realization of his African roots and things like that, especially in the Hispanic community, sometimes is very difficult in Dominican families. And so it's really interesting because typically, usually Dominican, so you can explain a little bit better about mejorando la raza.
Yeah. So the phrase, Miriam said, mejorando la raza, you know, bettering the race in a sense. If when I got married, I should have married somebody who was lighter than me.
And so it was really interesting, like guess who's coming to dinner? It's me, like the Black woman. And so it's really interesting navigating that within the family, because I think you know, people love me for who I am as Miriam, but I think that there's always that underlying like current of, you know, okay, you know, maybe, you know, what if Tari would have married someone else that looked a little bit different? And so we are going to have to fight the battle of raising Black children that aren't just Black because of their mom, but also because their father will be Black.
Is Black. Black.
Yes. Within that, within this context. And I want to make them proud of not only their African heritage, but also their Hispanic heritage, and bring them out into a world in which they're proud of who they are. And, you know, I pray that they're able to live, you know, wonderful lives. Yeah. Being proud of everything that makes them who they are.
Right.
So something interesting that we have to deal with a lot is people telling us how cute or how beautiful our children will be, which puts a lot of pressure on them. They better be, I guess. These people would be a huge disappointment. And I think we both don't want that to, we would prefer their character to be what makes them special, as opposed to just them being mixed race, or even how they look just in general. And, you know, and then so culture-wise, I think I want to make sure our children are well aware of where they come from, and proud of it. because their ancestors fought very hard for them. So,
Yeah, and like I was raised in a home where we were not allowed to have like white dolls or anything. It was we were very. I'm also Californian, so so it was very a diverse environment. But in my home, it was going to be you're gonna learn, you're gonna love yourself, and then from that you can love everybody else.
Right.
So I was always just under the assumption that like, and my kids will only have black dolls and like whatever else. And I still kind of feel that way, but I'm not sure because they're not just my kids. So I don't really know. Like it will be a discussion. But I also, like to his point earlier about people being like, oh, your kids are going to be so cute. It's like almost offensive to me because like, am I not cute? I'm not mixed race.
Right.
Like, what about my nieces and nephews that are not going to be mixed race? Like they're gonna, and I'm just very sensitive to that. I don't want my kids. I'm always like joking with him. Like I'm gonna be like, I don't even want to see your face. Like get your little light skin behind out of here. Like I don't want to, not like in a rude way, but just because I don't want them to like assume or even get it in their spirit a little bit that they are better than anybody else because of the color of their skin or because of anything, but like especially not. I don't want them on a high horse for any reason, like at all. So that's more of our, but yeah, it's part of the conversation for sure.
I love what you said, Kayla and Ben, and then also Miriam and Thade, what you sort of brought out about family perceptions. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit as well. You know, Kayla, for example, you said that when you were growing up, your parents talked about a lot of, or they made sure that you had only black dolls. So was it off-putting to them when you came home with Ben? And then Thade, I know that you said that you know, the rule is don't date anybody or don't marry anybody darker than you. You know, like what were some of the reactions and how did you handle the reactions if you had any negative interactions with your family as a result? And this goes for anybody else on the panel that would like to jump in on this. If there were any difficulties in accepting your interracial relationship from your family members or even the broader community.
Yeah, my family loves Ben so much. Like just immediately, it's like a little bit too much. They're just like, I love Ben. Like even now we get on like family Zoom calls and like they don't even say hi. They're just asking where he is, which I think maybe has something to do with race too, because they're just like, I don't know, but hello, I'm here. But no, I mean, it is interesting. I appreciate them. We have a lot of races in our family. Also, we have, you know, my uncles are in a mixed race, interracial relationship, interracial marriage. My grandmother is Jamaican and Nicaraguan, and it's just like it's part of who we are, but also we're Californian, so I think it's just like normal, at least for me, it was, and where I was, it was very, it was not a surprise.
Okay.
Yeah, my family has loved Kayla from the minute they met her. I think the biggest issue we had to deal with was going to visit my grandma. And I told her ahead of time, she's vegetarian. My grandma's Italian, so she thought fish is okay. And so my grandma lives in upstate Pennsylvania. We had been on the road after work and there was traffic. So as soon as I got in, I gave my grandma a hug, went to the bathroom. I come back out, the table's set, and there's fish in front of Kayla's plate. So
I'm eating fish today.
I was like, I had stressed her. I said, vegetarian, no fish, no meat, no, like, let me stress no fish, but she didn't hear it, I guess. So.
I love it.
He ate it for me, so I'm still vegetarian.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and like even just for me, when my family found out that I was engaged and to be married to Miriam, no one really had like, oh my gosh, you're marrying a black woman, like why would you do that type deal. It was more of when they saw her, when they met her, it was more like a shock and awe where it's like, whoa, she's different. She's like an exotic aberration or whatever, like something from another world. But it was like they never treat her any differently because so. You know, if you guys even take a look at my grandmother, you wouldn't even think that she's Dominican. She look like any other black person, just beautiful, you know? And I don't know, like some of my family members, they have married and dated for lighter skin. I think I'm the only one that has a black woman in their life. And I feel I'm double blessed. Everyone else, I don't know about y'all, but I feel amazing living with this life with this woman.
Yes, you are doubly blessed. I would second that. Amliv and Lucky, did you want to chime in?
Yes, I want to chime in. That was great, you guys. I like it. I love it. So quick story. When I first came into the Adventist church and I met my ex-husband, he was a very light-skinned African American, the first and only one I've ever dated. And so there was another
First and only African American that you've ever dated?
Well, only light skinned one, because it was usually like darker hued people, or if they're Spanish, there are some dark skinned Latinos, or you know, the lighter skinned Hispanics or whatever. So with my ex-husband, being that he was red, people would always question him whether he was Spanish or not, because he did have features that made him look Spanish, but he wasn't. And I remember a church member, I guess he was a little jealous. He was of a Haitian background. He made a comment that really disturbed me. He said, "Oh, you guys are going to have light-skinned, pretty babies." And I asked him, like, why would you say that? You know, what's the problem? Or what's the, you know, he has dark skin and lighter toned people in his family. Like, why do you feel that's a thing to even talk about or bring out, you know? And the person never really answered it. And it really bothered me, you know, that people were thinking I was dating this person just to have lighter skinned babies. And it was you know, it was something that really, even when we lost the pregnancy when we were married, but even when we were pregnant, it was something that really bothered me a lot. On my mind, that even now that I'm dating someone of an African background, it seems very different that, you know, people like my mom, she was fine either way with me dating, you know, when I was dating my ex-husband and we got married, even to now me dating a dark-skinned African man, she was fine with it. But it's just weird how people will come up with these colorism questions, especially in our community, about how your children are going to look, instead of thinking, how would I love my kids, or how much love would I give my kids, versus what the color of their skin would look like, if that's an advantage for them.
You know, and I'm actually glad that you brought that up, Emily, because I feel like as women of color in general, anytime we date outside of our race, whatever it is, if we're Indian or if we're African American or Hispanic, the assumption, especially if they're of a lighter hue, is that the reason why we made that decision is because we wanted our kids to have good hair,
right?
Or we wanted them to have nice skin, or like, have you guys ever dealt with any stereotypes or any misconceptions? What are the most ludicrous things that you've heard come out of people's mouths when it comes to, you know, dating somebody that is not within your race or culture?
Well, like, at least for us, like at face value, when you look at us, you like what people assume that a Hispanic man is supposed to look like is I guess not phatic. And so there's been many like times where I've been like talking with coworkers who are Dominican, or you know, other friends who are Hispanic, and then they see a picture of Thaddeus and they're like, "Are you sure?"
Oh,
Where's he
wow.
from for real? Like, and I'm like, what's going on? Like,
Wow.
and yeah, that's the most ludicrous thing that I usually hear.
I had an amazing moment happen a few years ago. Usually people are like, "What are you?" Where is your family from? And
Wow.
then one magical time it happened to my husband. His name is Leif, which is a Scandinavian name, so like Leif Erikson. And this guy at a barbecue would not let him alone. He was like, Leif, okay, so that's Scandinavian, so you must be from there. And Leif was like, yeah, it's a Scandinavian name. And he's like, but like Norway or Sweden, like, tell me more. And Leif's like, it's just what my parents named me. And like my in-laws, both of them are actually adopted. So like we can't, that it ends with them. Like we can't go back any further. And this guy just like hounded him. I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, this is my everyday. I cherish that moment.
It's so funny. You're absolutely right. I feel like that's something that we all deal with. I say I'm American, and they're like, "No, but where's your family from? Like, where you really?" Yeah, they would. So I feel you.
I got that very often growing up, especially when I came to America. Because even in Jamaica, they're like, "You're not Jamaican," and I was like, "I was born here. I was raised here. Both my parents are Jamaican," and they're like, "No, no, you're a foreigner. You're from foreign," and I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm from here." And when I came to America, same thing. They were like, "I was from every other island but Jamaica. I was from every other place but Jamaica." So it was weird.
Yeah, and first I think it's all of that resonates, and it's more so I think um, the kids thing and them just saying that it was like people were saying it to us before we got married. We were like, I mean, maybe if we want to have kids, like it's just very presumptuous. I don't know, but like thank you, but also realize that people are trying to give you a compliment, and it's not strangers. It's like your family, your friends. They're just like
Sometimes strangers do
it,
too.
oh no, yeah, it's everybody. Yeah, so it's just like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about that I feel like we can't not talk about is like what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement and all of the tensions. And I mentioned it earlier, the racial tensions that we've been dealing with in the U.S. Over really everything. Anybody who is not, according to our president, talking about who's really American, who needs to go back where. Has that had an impact on your relationships? Have you ever had to, I don't want to say put somebody in their place, but sort of defend your relationship or your thinking around the person that you're with because of everything that's happening?
I think for me, I kind of deal with that on a weekly basis, especially as things progressed, especially in this year, especially with my coworkers, and a lot of them are Hispanic of all range, but yet I'm the only Black Hispanic, and yet when they say things, I'm constantly having to defend what my wife has to deal with and what I have to deal with as well. And they kind of don't understand it for some reason, despite that this fight is also theirs. And it's almost that they're apart from it and they're not with it. Like, and it's hard to get through them to understand, listen, this affects us all. Yeah. We're Black, brown people. We're children of immigrants. This affects us in all manners. And you just saying, no, everything's gonna be fine. No, my kid is light and this and that and the third. You're not helping the situation anyway. And if you wouldn't dare say that if my wife was here presently, but yet it's okay to say it on the side and have some snarky remark. Like it's not cool.
Right.
Well, I think we are blessed and also intentional about who we speak to, where we live, things like that. And some of it you can't get around. This is not to counter Thaddeus' point. This is like, I don't live in the South because I don't want to deal with that. And it is, yeah, it's an interesting time. I think it hasn't necessarily changed our relationship, and I think people more see we live in a very gentrified area, so I think people are kind of used to seeing that. Him with the Black Lives Matter shirt. We live in DC, so we're constantly like, oh, we're going to a protest today. Okay, great. Like, so we're doing things like that, but it is always on my mind, and I'm always thinking about, what are people thinking? Am I doing more because I'm with a white person? Right. Am I doing, am I trying to make sure that he is like seen in a position of supporting me and things like that? But I think the things that we have to deal with, like inside of our relationship, are more, and not deal with, it's more of just like discussing more of the like emotional stress and struggle of living through this time in different ways, and me having to be like learning how to be more empathetic to the fact that he is dealing with stuff too, as opposed to just being like, woe is me, I need all of the support and love because all of my people are being attacked and dying. And it still is very true, and I'm trying to I've tried to express it in different ways, like to help him understand if I'm just like crying in a corner or something, even though he does get it and it is sad for him too. Like this is we all live here, this is all of our country, like this is whatever. So I think that's kind of my perception of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. While this president is awful, a lot of these problems and issues go way back, and they didn't just start in 2016. And so we're trying to fight them. We were trying to fight them before that, and have been trying to fight them during this time, and then we'll be trying to fight them when he's no longer president. I think one of the like personal things is, trying to have more conversations with friends who have ignorant views is something I've been emboldened by, and just kind of learning more of the nuance and talking points that are helpful from Kayla, and just doing more research myself. And I think another crazy thing, like an experience we had, was we went to a dinner with some of my parents' friends. And I didn't know them super well. I'd grown up and seen them a few times. They weren't like super close friends. And we were at a table, not with my parents, but with other people. And I think at least one of the white man, was wouldn't make eye contact with Kayla, and wouldn't really acknowledge her or something like that. I think, me maybe partially being a guy, maybe being white had to do with it, but also, this was the first time I brought her there, so I was nervous for other things. We had a lot of people at the table. I didn't notice, but she told me about it afterward, and I thought more about it and kind of realized that had happened. And it put me more, it just wasn't something I'd ever had to deal with before that, personally or with a significant other. And so it really put me on guard anytime we were going into a situation like that, to have to be prepared to, speak up or to protect or, whatever. But it's very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and in general, I guess that's also why we were confused with it. Maybe not confused, but your other question, we deal, I think, with a lot more microaggressions than we do like overt, just, you know. So yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that.
Okay. Yeah, I like what you said there. And you know, the reason why I asked about like some of the craziest things that you had to deal with is because I've seen a lot of people talk about people being brazen and coming up to their faces when they're with somebody of a different race, regardless of what it is, especially when it comes to Black people, and saying, you know, how could you date this person? Do you know this person did X, Y, and Z? Not the person themselves, but their people, you know. And so I get the microaggressions. They are, yeah, I get that. But there are also, you know, sometimes when people will like be bold and brazen about things like that. And so this kind of brings me to the next question that I had, and Ben sort of kind of introduced that, because you're talking about people who are not necessarily people who are ignorant and not necessarily accepting of the culture of your choice and of embracing somebody else's culture. And so my question is, have you guys ever had to have difficult conversations, maybe similar to what your experience was, Ben, with your friend who was being disrespectful to Kayla? But how do you have conversations, difficult conversations like that, with either people that you love or people that don't know you and, you know, do practice those microaggressions towards you? How do you handle things like that? What are some of the things that, some of the ways that you deal with that, especially when it comes to defending your choice in a partner or defending your partner in general? I hope that question made sense.
I would say you have to call them out. You just have to call them out. But because I mean, if you love them and you care about that relationship you have with that person, it's only important that you tell them something that really did hurt you or affect you with someone that you do care about. Um, so if this person, which I've had to do it before, even in a relationship that didn't really matter, because when I was in Huntsville, Alabama, for school, I remember working at a hotel, and um, this white person, he told me, he first started off the conversation by saying, you know, I must be being ignorant or something, because he's like, I'm a redneck, I'm not racist, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, what's up? And he said to me, basically, I shouldn't tell people that I'm Black. I should tell them I'm Indian. And I was like, why? And he said, because the owners that, you know, own this building and stuff, you look like them, they're Indian, blah, 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 because they're from Britain, they're Indian. And I think because my hair was straighter at that time, or straightened, he was like, you look more Indian featured. So I said to him, no, I'm fine being Black. I'm proud of being Black, you know. I'm okay with being Black. You just have to be okay with that. And he was like, well, you're too pretty to be Black or something. And I was like, well, that's your opinion. Wow. I hope you have a great night. And, you know, yes, that was very ignorant. Now, you know, everything else works out for you. And that was it. But for me, I've always been the person to just call people out on it and let them know in love that, you know, that's not okay. That's not appropriate, you know? And you can't tell someone how to be if they're telling you who they are and what they prefer to be called or considered or anything. So it's crazy. I've had that before.
So I'm looking at Kayla, and she seems a bit bothered by that comment, and so am I. So you know, you're not the only one. But we actually have some questions from YouTube. One is for Ben and one is for Lucky. Ben, so the question is, have you ever used your white privilege to help Kayla in any situation? Have you ever, can you recall a time when you've ever had to use your privilege or exercise your privilege in order to help Kayla?
I mean,
oh, sorry. The question also, it says to help both of you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think every day. I think I think he experiences privilege all of the time, like as soon as we walk out of this house. So I think anytime that I get to benefit from that, yeah, I mean, his getting like having a lovely job, I think is part of it. Not that he doesn't deserve it, like he's great, but I still think I'm like, great, this is, let's be nice. It's not that I don't have a job, I have a lovely job too. I still think that it's like, I just think it's everywhere. So yes.
Yeah, the list is probably too long to list out, but I'm sure there's tons of ways in which we both benefited.
Yeah, and it like to the microaggression thing, it would be like, I don't know. I feel like there are times where people, like especially if we're traveling or something, people will like give him something like a flight attendant as we were walking onto the plane, like, oh, would you like some of this, sir? And then just like skip over me to the next person, and then he'll just like, my wife would like some, or like whatever.
Right.
So it's like, it's just constant.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Lucky, the question was, we heard that you dated a lot of people, your words. You dated tons of people, and the question was of different races. And the question was, were there any people that were easier to date than others, or any races that were easier to date than others?
A very good question. So, multifaceted answers. The white guys' parents were usually much more like lenient. And so, like I came from a conservative home. And so now there was only one set of conservative parents instead of two sets kind of warring against it. So like the Indian guys, like, nope, same rules as me. So that was a lot, that was a lot harder. But not related to race, but rather related to household structure. The boys' men that were easier to date were the ones that came from homes where their dads were active in their lives. And that's something that I didn't realize until a little bit later on in life, looking back and reflecting on, really this kind of tableau of people that I had spent time with, because what's your youth for? But to meet lots of different people.
Lucky, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
You got Kayla's support here too.
Get out there.
Okay, so we are about to go into our overflow. Before I do the connection, I'm just going to give each of you, if you would like, just final words as it relates to love and dating, whether it be interracially or culturally. You got it.
I'll first start off with saying that one of the best experiences that I've had is dating interracially. The time that I had dated anyone within my own race was the time I was the most miserable. But outside of that, I had the most fun, the most love, the most care, the most respect. So to anyone out there, go ahead and learn from other people, learn culture, embrace it and take it all in. You're only going to better yourself in your life, and you're no longer going to be in a small sphere, but you're going to be in a globe, in a big world.
I think as much as I think about race, and I think about it all the time. And I think that was probably something that was a surprise. Well, that Ben has expressed to me was like, yeah, I'm always thinking about it. More of our story has been just about us as people, because we are more than just, I'm more than just a Black woman. Sometimes I'm a grieving daughter. Sometimes I'm a bad cook. Sometimes I'm like, whatever, our story has been absolutely affected by who we are, and formed by the people that we bring to this marriage, but it's been just about like learning each other, doing that, like being open to learning about the cultures and differences of just like who we are as people. And so then that you know gets you the other stuff, that gets you the other experiences. And I think it's um, I think it is lovely and great, and it can still be, it's still a surprise to me. Most of my other like serious boyfriends were Black, but I still was like, it wasn't a consideration like that. It wasn't like, oh, let me switch over to white guys, or like let me whatever. It was just like I liked him, and then you know we if he had other views that were maybe formed by his culture, then it just wouldn't have worked out because I got to know him.
And I think to Lucky's point earlier, it's great to date lots of people when you're young. But I think even just as far as like the interracial dating, that's wonderful. But even just having friends and being open to other races and cultures is super important. It makes your life so much better than it would if you just stay in your silo of what you grew up with or what your family has, because there's just so much you're missing out on that you can't know till you experience it.
I love what you guys said, what everybody has said about, being open-minded. And, Ben, especially what you said just now about it not just being about who you're dating, but just in general, being open-minded and getting to know people for who they are, regardless of what their culture or their race is, because you miss out when you are not open. And on that note, we are going to transition into the overflow. We are encouraging you to look, for those of you on YouTube, you can find the link in the chat. And this is your opportunity to hop on and ask questions to our panelists. We are here for, they're going to be here for a little bit to answer any questions that you have. So we will see you in the overflow. All right, so we are now in our overflow. We're just waiting for some of our YouTube people to hop on.
Fresh from YouTube, y'all. Fresh from YouTube. That's how I roll.
Great moderating.
Oh, thanks.
So, one of the things I was thinking about, and Lucky, you alluded to it, I have had a somewhat privilege of dating outside my race more frequently than some of my peers. And I'm wondering if any of you have kind of experienced what I call, to me, the family shock, right? Like I enjoy it, but it's always look on the face and you're like, oh, this is who you're bringing home. And like, just, I want to see if anyone has experienced that, and then I'll share why I bring that up as an interesting tell. Or was I the only one? Maybe I was the only one.
Miriam and Thade actually said that they experienced that.
Really? Mama O was shocked? They were shocked? I didn't know. Where was I? Why wasn't I paying attention?
No, I think like at least for my family especially, I think it was like, oh, well, this is interesting. Like he's not Kenyan. Like he doesn't really understand like the culture in some aspects. But my parents, they didn't care if someone was green or blue or purple. Like as long as they treated me well and they loved me, that was it was what it was. And so I do feel that I sometimes people like pause like when it comes to some people in Thade's family. Not all. I feel so loved and accepted by so many of the family members, and you know, it's really been great to get to know people. But yeah, we definitely had a guess who. Guess who's coming to dinner kind of thing.
Anyone else have that, or is it just me? Oh, me and Miriam.
We didn't have
I've
that.
been the shocker more than my mates.
Wait, you have been the shocker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We, well, my family still lives in California, so before they saw it, I don't know, I think we just prepared our people before they were going to, like, I don't want to have to be uncomfortable, please. You told them I'm Black, right? Okay, did you tell your grandma know that I'm Black? I don't care if she cares if I'm a vegetarian. She knows I'm Black, right? Like, it's always I don't want to be in that situation.
We did have, when we were, like the summer before we were dating for real, we were like long distance and we're just talking over the phone. And one of the conversations she had was, how would my family, especially parents, react? So it was on her mind, but it wasn't a problem at all. And there weren't any, and with other races too, my parents, that was never the issue that I ever
Then
had.
you're acknowledging that you were a man whore. It's okay. That's what
What?
youth is
What
for.
are
He was
you
trying to allude to
saying?
it because he was like any other race. Like there was a look that
I
came
think
through
he
the door.
resonates a lot with Lucky. I just,
Right, him and Lucky connect.
I
out
don't
there.
know what you guys are talking about.
I will say I can make that statement because I also had a very colorful youthful experience, and I always find it interesting that look who, as Miriam said, look who we brought home today, because it always told me that people weren't as open as they say that they are. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, no problem, you can date whoever, and then it's like, hey, the blackity black guy, like I'm not light skinned, I'm a full chocolate, like there's no hiding me. And so I always found it interesting because then the conversations would shift to what I wanted to talk about, which is the microaggressions. And I'm not even as conscious, I wasn't as conscious as I am now about microaggressions then. But like thinking back, I was like, oh dang, no, wait, they were saying like I was a good black guy. Like I spoke so well, or I was surprised about your grades. So, oh, that's what you want to do? Oh, you're from a single mom? She's so wonderful. She raised a wonderful young man. Like, would she
For being a single mom.
would it be different if I had both? Like what's happening right now? And so that's why I asked that, because I think that's an aspect of interracial dating that I've experienced before, was this idea of everyone's open until it's really the person in front of you. And then you get to see subtle, it's not a lot, like it's great to have these points challenged, but it's always interesting that people think they're open until the person's in front of them. And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, you're going to be at every dinner, always now. Like, this is reality. I see some nodding heads, or wondering if some experiences are coming up for you guys.
For me, I just throw people in it. I'll just tell them, hey, come on over to our family dinner because we have a birthday party every month or something. So just throw them in. You know, they got 21 questions, 100,000 questions. Because, you know, as I said, 99% of the people in my family are women. So they want to know questions. They want to question you. They want to know everything about you, which is great for me because it's like they can kind of be my wingmen, women on the side to let me know things to look out for, things to, you know, peep on everything. And but on the reverse side, I've been told with a lot of Hispanic and Latino men, they were like, oh, my mom won't like you, this, that, and the third. And I was like, all right, try me, you know? So I'd go to their house. And lo and behold, mommy has a whole, you know, platter, food, plate, everything. And they're looking at me like, does she know you? Like, why is she making you food, a plate of food, talking to you, friends, best friends, all this stuff? And I'm like, because I think I'm a likable person, you know, I think I have some kind of manners or whatever. I came in their house, say, hello, Miss So-and-so or whatever. But you know, because they're like, all I said to her, you know, is that you're coming over and this, that, and the third. Usually their moms don't like anyone. And they told me, they're like, I don't like any of their girlfriends. I could care less. And I was like, so what made me different? They're like, I don't know. It's just something about you. I just want to fix you food. And they were speaking to my gut. They were speaking to my heart, you know, heart at the time. So the fact that they did that, I was like, I love your mother. I'm gonna come and visit her, even if we're not together, you know. But as I said, it was interesting. The moms, you know, were treating me like I was their child, telling me not to date their son or I shouldn't be with, right. So I was like, oh, okay, all right, you know, thanks, mom, for giving me the heads up and everything. So that was, you know, as I said, I don't know what it was, why as soon as I went into these households, they'll tell me, you know, what was up, what was the deal. But it was interesting, as I said, to be dating culturally differently, because there were a lot of similarities, especially in the foods, but then there were a lot of differences as well. But I was able to still take them in and learn from it and learn with them and just, you know, kind of keep it moving. So instead of taking everyone's judgments in and telling me don't date this person, don't date this race, especially when it comes to African, they're like, they're controlling, they're mean, they're this, that. And I'm like, but it's different. This person isn't that. And when I presented that person to my family, they're like, oh, he's really nice. And I'm like, exactly. Get to know them first before you throw them under the bus and run them over a couple of times, you know?
For us, we've dealt with some, I would say, instead of microaggressions, they're kind of macro. And so, like for instance, we were in Florida with some family members, and one of the family members has children, and they are an array of colors. And so this one particular child of his that is the darkest skinned, he decided to call them a niglet.
What?
Yes. And so at that time, like my sister-in-law and my husband, they both you know, chimed in and was like, what are you doing? Like, who, like, what is going on? And you know, that for me, like, it was like, whew, like, because for me, knowing that, and I know Ben and Kayla also talk about this, like my children will possibly be, or thinking about the fact that they'll be in an environment in which they, because of their darker skin, you know, they might be looked at as different or called certain names or things like that, was really heavy on my heart. And I think that same particular weekend, there was a couple of things that went on, and one of our cousins-in-law, I just literally, we were staying with them, and I literally just broke down in tears. And I'm like, I can't have this happen to my kids. My kids are going to be dealing with enough outside in the world. Like, I don't want them to be dealing with, you know, the feeling of colorism or feeling that they're other within their own family. And so they had vowed to Thaddeus and I that, like, you know, when we do have kids, that like they will vouch for them. And if they hear something just in general, that they will also vouch for us and say like, hey, you can't say that, or that's not something appropriate, you know. And so having those allies within the family, you know, helps a lot, but it was definitely a macroaggression.
And I think it's powerful because we all alluded to, you all, sorry, I feel like I was a part of this anyway. You all alluded to things that I think is so relevant. And I want to be transparent in, one, my own internalized racism as a young Black man, because I used to, and my wife knows this, I used to prefer to date lighter, I'll say. I'll start there, because it didn't really matter who, like as long as you were lighter. I was
No white girls.
I was in Jersey. That's hard. Like, it's not hard to find. Like, you throw a stone and I'm going to hit a white girl. And it's going to hit another white girl when it falls from their forehead. Like, he
wanted the Jersey Shore girls. That's what he wanted.
So, well, first thing I want to talk about just the internal racism that I had there, because I realized I had internalized this idea of Black girls being loud or whatnot. And so I grew past that. But now thinking about children, I also realized that there was that pressure, like the lighter child was better. And to listen to you, Ben and Kayla, talk about how that impacts you as a racial couple or interracial couple actually makes me check my own self, right? Because now I'm on the other end, like, yeah, my child's gonna be beautiful and chocolate. But like, I don't want to elevate that to the degree that makes your multiracial child feel less than because they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this conversation is so important. Because you guys like reminded me of like, you know what, your child is going to be beautiful because they are who they are, like period. They're going to be beautiful because who they are. And it actually won't take away from the potential struggles. Enter the Mix this show to highlight that, you know, children of interrace actually have as much problems, if not more, than that of children of a singular race. I wonder. Like, I don't know. I mean, I was pure.
Well, I mean, there's that conversation about identity, you know, where like children who are mixed race, and you know, I talk about experiencing that even being bicultural, where like
she made
you
that
can't really, you can't, when you tell people, oh, I'm American, or oh, I'm Guyanese, you're not really accepted by either one because you're not full that thing. And so, you know, like you know, so just thinking about, you know, the difficulties that multiracial children may have, you know, they're not fully Asian or fully Black or fully white or fully Hispanic, you know, like it's that identity thing, and it's worrying about what people of either race will say about them, or whether they'll be accepted by either race. And I think that sometimes, I don't know, that could be a potential challenge.
Thoughts?
Well, I could say that with my siblings on my dad's side, because my father has a lot of mixed race children on his side, all my half siblings from my eldest brother down to, I would say, the second to last kids, because he just had twins at 61. I don't know why.
God bless him. God bless his seed. Look at
So basically, I asked one of my siblings when I first met them at 16, because knowing that I was more on the darker hue side than the rest of them, I asked them, okay, so what do you consider yourself? And she told me basically, she thinks of herself as chocolate vanilla swirl. She's like, I'm both. I'm not going to choose one over the other. I know my dad is Black. I know my mom is white, but I don't want to choose between both of them. And I said, then that's good. You shouldn't have to choose. You're both, you know? And you do have a rich history on both sides, and no one should tell you are either or. And the youngest of my 12 brothers and sisters now, the 12 of us, she even got involved with the Black Lives Matter movement. And her mom, it was so like emotional for me for her mom to get very involved with it, because she always wanted to let them know that, you know, this is a part of you. This is a part of your history. This is a part of who you are in America. You're not just Black and you're not just white. But if something like this, you know, were to come up, I want you to be proud of who you are as a mixed race child in this country. So.
Lucky, it seemed like you were about to say something.
Oh, yeah, it's weird. It's weird being mixed. Like, I mean, it's exactly like,
it's weird. It's bottom line.
Are you this? Are you that? You're not quite enough. Mm-hmm. But there are some like privileges that come with it, which is that you're like exotic, ethnically ambiguous, can kind of like, oh, like, are you Hispanic? No. Oh, or what about this? Are you Hawaiian? And so, I mean, there's some fun things that come along with it, but then you have to like have that time where you have to decide and have to identify, which is something that not everybody has to do. Yeah. And like, I went to a high school that had a lot of people from Southeast Asia, and it really put me in touch with my culture. My sister did not, and she didn't like really care to delve in until a little bit later. And she has a way harder name than me. I go by my nickname, Lucky, and she has to go by Anusha her whole life. And, you know, maybe she was tempted at some point to like hide behind Annie or something. But like, she's stuck with it, and we're like, we're on the same page now. But I mean, I know other siblings that are mixed race that are just like, yeah, I'm not really into that. I'm just gonna roll with my I'm just whatever, white bread American is cool. We're not delving in, and the other one's just way more exploratory. But for us, it's a lot more, you got to do your own research.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I just want to let you know, my wife didn't agree to the statement, but that's why I want to adopt a white child, because I want to help them understand what it's like to be in a family. I wanted to tell the truth on YouTube and the internet so they know what it's like. And because I just had this conversation the other day and we talked about it, because I think what Ben talked about and what we're trying to normalize here is this idea that growing outside your bubble it's actually beneficial. Like, you really are exposed to other cultures. Like, we're talking interracially here, but really in other countries, it'll be intercultural. Like, it's less about, you know, I think in the chat they were saying, like, as long as you're Jamaican, I don't care what you look like, like physically, as long as you're Jamaican, you know, or if you're French, like, as long as you're French, it doesn't matter if you're Black French or white French or what, it's you're French. But if you're a foreigner in France, then it's a different issue. Maybe not everywhere, but in America, interracial is really the biggest problem. And so I think there's something to be said about, like, adopting a white child. It's like, this is what it's like to grow up in a whole other culture. And like me picking them up at PTA meeting, like, where's your dad? This guy right here. But
you're talking about the shock again. You're bringing that over from your youth. Yeah.
I actually love what Lucky said earlier about her husband being drilled about where he was really from. I thought that was hilarious. Because you don't really hear, you know, usually that happens to us. You know, so it's kind of funny, you know, when it you know, it happens on the flip side.
And my son or daughter is going to have that same experience. Where are you from?
I gotta hop off. Thank you so much for including me. I had a really wonderful time.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
You guys are laughing, but I'm also so sincere.
Caleb,
go ahead.
Actually, it's funny because I get the same thing that Lucky's husband gets. Everyone thinks that I'm Irish or Scottish or something like that, and I have none of that in my background. So it's just funny, you know.
In the height of summer when his hair gets all extra red and stuff.
Like
just Italian.
Yeah, but I mean, that's much, but it's very interesting. I hear you. I hear the heart of what you're saying about adopting a Black kid or a white kid.
Also hear the truth in it.
Oh God.
Yeah, no. But my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, runs a nonprofit for kids, and he had as an essay that talks about white kids need Black role models too, and it's like, yeah, it's such a good point. They do. I have said the opposite. Like, if we adopt a kid, it's going to be a little Black boy for sure. And I would push back on your thought process around what you, how you encourage your kids about, like, being proud of their chocolate and all of that. I'm not an advocate of dialing that down at all. I think I would dial it all the way up. I'm gonna have to learn some other things, because I'm like, my kids are gonna be Black. I don't know what his kids are gonna be, but my kids are gonna be.
Oh, and part 2 of this is a private session with Kayla and Ben about marriage, partnership, and compromise. But to your point, you know, I think what your brother-in-law does, and to the comment of, like, dialing up the Black, I think what Susan talked about, the intercultural thing, is something I can speak to also, because I used to claim being American because I actually felt foreign being of Munch-Russian descent. Yeah, say that 10 times fast. Small island. But it was like, because I didn't have the dialect, because I didn't have the accent, as it were, or I couldn't speak on the colloquialisms, like, I wasn't Munch-Russian, but I also wasn't American because I didn't want to be American, I should say, because to be American was just to be Black. And being Black in America sucked at the time. Like, who wants to be othered all of their life? And so this idea of, one, embracing our identity, as Lucky said, is really powerful. And then really coming to find this idea, like, this is just really who I am. And I am Caribbean American descent, right? And the idea of raising a white child in a Black family is, I wasn't even as profound as wanting to give them role models, but just this idea that I think those are privileged. It's not even just white. I feel like if they have that privilege, they want to adopt and save the world. It's like, your children need saving too. Like, there are also white children out there who haven't been adopted, who need a good home. So you know what? I'll be that good home, and imagine what that feels like, you know, as a stigma, because then, yeah, we'll be a good family and we'll be fun. And our little Shaquisha, because I'm going to name her, I'm going to be
The
so black in
blackest-
her
the
name.
blackest.
It'll be John, Matthew, Amanda, and Shaquisha. And you're gonna know who Shaquisha is because Shaquisha's gonna be extra. But we're laughing because like race is so difficult in this world. Go ahead.
You sound like my dad because that's exactly what happened. Not only do we have 12 of us, but there's 5 adopted kids too attached to that. Okay, there are 2 white girls and 2 little white girls and 3 Spanish kids. Okay. But one of the girls, because the both of them were sisters, so they wanted to marry, basically adopt them in together. They didn't want to separate them. But one of them, she got really sick and passed away when she was 9. So the other one that remained, you can't tell her nothing, okay? Because she is black, okay?
Black.
Right. So, and she's proud too. So, you can't tell her nothing. And they live in Boston, so she has that
Ooh.
accent too, right?
That's tough. That's a thesis in and of itself.
Right. So it's interesting. It's an interesting family dynamic why I was very open to, date interracially, because I was just interested in knowing what it was like in other backgrounds, cultures, and, their upbringing or their family proud traditions and all of that good stuff. So I was here for it.
Well, we just want to say, oh, go ahead, Miriam.
No, one thing I was gonna say, because I didn't get to say something like closing. Like I love the opportunity of being able to like work alongside someone or be alongside someone who I think a lot of the times with interracial relationships, like Kayla was saying, we ew.
He's a hot mess. Please don't pay him no mind.
She knows me.
We kind of try to like trivialize things, and we make it our identity as a Black woman or a white man or a Hispanic comes before anything else. And I think we always, like, Daddy and I had like similarities sometimes in the way that we grew up and different things like that, and that's what like made us who we are. And so I really love that we're able to combine the two like great things about us culturally, emotionally, spiritually, and also that, we can also make our own traditions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is one of the most awesome parts as well. So, don't just be open to whoever comes around, because you never know. And you can borrow traditions from each other and create your own.
That was actually a very beautiful closing. Oh, wait, Kayla, go ahead.
No,
Go right
okay.
ahead.
He was going to say something.
I was just going to expand a little. Like, I completely agree with her about not dialing back the your kid being beautiful because they're Black, because I think that even from our conversation today, it's kind of similar to the Black Lives Matter movement, is that society in general doesn't see Black or darker Black, even within the Black community, as being as beautiful in general. And it is. And I think we need to promote that. Ideally, one day we won't need to anymore. But until that day comes, I agree with her that, that don't dial it back.
I want to be Ben's friend now because he's white and because he's an advocate for Black women.
I know, exactly. And that's the other thing that I was thinking, like, while Mary was talking, I was like, yes, exactly. And that's why, like, I most certainly would not be with a white person who was like, I'm down, I'm Black, I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I don't, What I love is that he is exactly who he is, and then I get to learn this person. I don't need you to be who I am. And he is like, has been like that with me since day one. And like, even one of the most romantic things he told me just the other day, I was like, should I straighten my hair? And he was just like, oh, it seems like it's gonna take a long time.
Yes, Ben, natural.
It's gonna take a long time.
Slow clap from all the women.
And for me, man, naturally all the way.
Right?
Also, you get love in the chat, Ben. You get love in the chat. They're loving you.
Oh boy.
So exactly, I appreciate that he celebrates me, and I want to celebrate him. We don't need to beat each other. We need to like just learn each other. I love that.
Well, I'm sorry, Ben.
Oh no, I was just saying thank you, guys. I thought you were closing stuff.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I was just gonna say how much I really enjoyed this conversation and getting to know each and every one of you, and I'm grateful for your input. Thank you for those of you who joined us in the chat. As always, we are going to make a spiritual connection. The Bible says that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, anyone who fears him and does what is right and acceptable to him. And it also says, and he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth. So that's just to say, regardless of what color we are, what culture we are, we all come from one person. Nobody was made from a better quality sand than the other person was. We were all made in his image. And so the idea is, as all of our panelists have highlighted, be open-minded, be loving, because at the end of the day, we all bleed the same color.
Adopt the other racial child.